Hey, what's up, guys? This is Clay with Heavyweight Comics. Welcome to our review series. Today we're taking a look at X-Men #1. Now, to be 100% honest, I've never read any of this series. So, as I'm reading this series, you guys are hearing my initial impressions. I know it's been around for, gosh, almost 30 years or whatever it's been. But the fact is, I've never read the story, and I was very interested in checking it out. So, this is my thoughts and opinions on this series by Chris Claremont and art by Jim Lee. So let's start off #1 with the story. Again, I'm going to try and give as little spoilers as I can. Hopefully, it's going to be mostly spoiler free. But ultimately, this story was pretty cool. I liked it. It's again, I don't have the context of what was prior to this story, but ultimately, it seems as though Magneto was held up on asteroid M. Out in space, and there was some speculation, I guess, that it was already destroyed, and ultimately he's reappeared, and that these mutants have found him, and they're looking for sanctuary on asteroid M with Magneto, and uh, and so that's where our kind of story starts, and we'll kind of again to try and give as few spoilers as possible. The X-Men get wind of this, and they are just kind of jumping to action to meet Magneto and see if they can prevent any sort of issues popping up in the future between Homo sapiens and Homo sapiens superior. Magneto's words, not mine. So anyway, we get some really cool pieces of training pages where the X-Men are in the danger room, and it's again very entertaining to watch them go through that. So it's a classic X-Men trope of seeing them in the danger room. So it's fun to get to see that in this first issue. Moving on, we see again, this will be a spoiler, so close your ears for about 10 seconds or whatnot. But we see an awesome piece where Magneto is on Earth, and he is literally lifting up this submarine that he had wrecked prior to this story, and he's just pulling up warheads out of this wrecked ship, and it is such a cool moment in the story. I had to share that part, that it was just something that I definitely took from this book, and it was a lot of fun to read and see him even do it. But as the story progressed, I won't spoil anything else. The action is certainly fun, and it's again just I'll just use that to segue into the art, which this is a Jim Lee book. I mean, he is by definition one of the best artists of all time in comics. I will say this also, that I do have one thing that I've always disagreed with Jim Lee on, and that's the way he draws women. I am 100% behind any artist drawing a woman or man in a comic attractive, but I'm not so much for a woman or man even being drawn sexually. I'm just very sexualized. I'm not for that. Again, I'm a dad. I have two daughters, and they're also very much into comics and the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe and fan fiction with the different things that they're into. So whenever I talk to them about comics, I want to be able to share that with them, and I'm just not into women being over sexualized, because that's not something I think that they need to look up to. I'm not for that at all. I think that my daughters are worth more than selling their bodies to another man's eyes. I think that belongs to their husband, and husband alone. So anyway, by definition, this art is amazing, and I have always appreciated Jim Lee's art. So, saving the fact that, again, the art's amazing, I wish that the women weren't drawn so sexually, but again, that is just something that you kind of have to deal with if you're going to read a Jim Lee comic, is that his women are usually drawn pretty sexually. So, art is incredible, barring that one thing, which is the women I wish were toned down a bit. Next section was this comic fun? This comic was tons of fun. I enjoyed reading it. I think I could see myself reading this down the road when I found some extra time, and after I've if I wanted to come back and revisit it. But it was great. I really enjoyed it. One thing I always judge comics off of, as far as their fun, is #1, do I ever find myself in the book being taken out of the story? When I'm reading a book, does the art, does the dialogue, does it feel seamless? Am I being taken out of it at any point to have to double read a dialogue balloon or do I have to do a double take on the art to understand what's happening? And I didn't find myself doing that too much. There was actually maybe just like one or two panels where I kind of had to, kind of control my eyes as to understand where the dialogue was going. But again, it just seemed, it flowed really well, and I enjoyed it. Would I recommend this book? I think I would. I mean, it's really, I know that historically speaking, and you'll hear tons of people talk about how cool the '90s were, and how popular the series was, and how this is one of the best-selling comics of all time, and whatnot, and I can understand why. I mean, the creative team on this book is awesome. I'd recommend it to anyone who loves X-Men. I grew up on the '90s cartoon show, and it made me love X-Men when I was a kid. That's what introduced me to the characters. And this book just feels so nostalgic in that I feel like it could be the comic version of the cartoon, and I love it and I appreciate it for that. So I mean, I would recommend this to anyone who has not read it before. Again, if you got, I wouldn't recommend it to little kids, just because again, I have certain personal standards about how I believe men and women should be portrayed, and how little boys, I don't even think should be even looking at girls drawn that way, because I mean, I just feel like my sons, if I when they do come along, that I'm gonna hold them to a higher standard of what's accepted. But anyway, so that's the quick, mostly spoiler-free review of X-Men #1. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video. Be sure to like, comment, share. Have you read this story before? Tell me your thoughts on the story. If you haven't read it, do you think you're gonna pick it up now? Anyway, be sure to share your thoughts and comments down below. And thanks so much, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks.